Mallory Anderson works with Hennepin County's Waste Reduction and Recycling Unit. She's working to meet a 75% recycling goal by the year 2030. She works on policy and annual reporting for the county's waste reduction and recycling team. She leads the implementation of Hennepin County's recycling requirement ordinance number 13. She has supported the business recycling team as a liaison to businesses trying to reduce waste and increase how much they recycled. Mallory also leads the commercial recycling requirement for businesses to recycle and compost. View more about organics at hennepin.us/businessorganics. Welcome, Mallory. We are glad to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Will I be able to share?
I just gave you authority.
Wonderful. Let me go ahead and quick set that up because got a lot more links for you all. All right.
I was just talking about recycling with some folks about what can be recycled and can't and myths. So I'm excited. I'm going to have to clear up some things with neighbors.
We all will. All right. So we'll start off here with kind of, what is the problem with waste? And I think this graph shows that there has been a slight dissociation between per capita waste generation, but total waste has still gone up and up and up. So we're still generating a lot of waste here in the United States. And although this map cuts off in 2014, it's only continued to kind of incrementally go up from year to year.
What is MSW?
MSW is mixed solid waste. So that includes trash, recycling, and those two all together. And so it doesn't count anything that goes down your toilet, sink, or anything kind of outside of the typical trash and recycling stream. So that wouldn't be industrial waste. So anything like generated at a manufacturing company, nor any commercial or construction and demolition waste. So if you are having a renovation done on your home, construction and demolition waste is handled differently in Minnesota state statute in many states. And so that isn't counted in MSW. So that's the difference there. That's a great question. So the World Resources Institute did an estimate of how much resources, they estimate what our resource use is from year to year and kind of what we have available, what we know is available left in the ground for different materials, and estimate how many years until depletion and different calculations like that. And so in a recent study they published, they estimated in countries like the United States and Canada and Australia, 50 to 75% of all annual resource inputs to our economy are returned as waste within a year. So I think this feels like a lot. Half of our stuff is coming into our house, hanging out for a year, and then going away. And I think, when you think of all of the food packaging and all the different items we use and consume from day to day, this does seem about right. You only get a new phone every couple of years, only get a new computer every couple of years, but generally a lot of the things we use day to day are short term, and you only use them for a few uses or even just one use. So we do have some ambitious waste and recycling goals. So we're hoping to recycle 60% of our waste by 2030 and get another 15% of our waste into compost sites. And that's what we call organics. So that's our food and yard waste. So what's in the recycling? I know a lot of us think and talk a lot about plastic, but a lot of what's still being recycled is paper. So mixed paper is newspapers, and well, newspaper is 10%. So mixed paper is like your office paper and your kind of just all the weird stuff that goes into your bin. And then you have cardboard, which is 20% glass. This is by weight. So although we may not have a lot of glass coming into our households, glass is heavy, so it remains 23%. And then plastic is light. So this might look different if we were looking at it by volume instead of by weight. So what's left in the trash? This was a waste sort, which is where we literally sort trash coming into our transfer station. So this is a waste sort of 3 different neighborhoods in Minneapolis. And it was in 2016. And what they found by far, and this is confirmed by other waste sorts in Minnesota and across the country, is that the most common material left in our trash is food. So this would be, uneaten food, food scraps, compostable items are the huge chunk of what's left in our trash that we could easily divert to be recycled. And here, these 3 neighborhoods in Minneapolis are doing a pretty good job of recycling. You see that there aren't any recyclable items in those top few materials, which is pretty good. And generally, I would say here in Hennepin County, but in Minnesota, we do a very good job with recycling. We have a lot of local markets and very ingrained culture around recycling. So when you hear, news articles and summaries about recycling across the country, I think that's a fair picture of recycling in the whole country. But here in Hennepin County in Minnesota, we are doing fairly well. We have generally low amounts of trash that are going into the recycling sorting facilities, and we're doing okay when it comes to finding recyclers that will actually buy our material. So we don't have that issue of material being stockpiled for months and months and months with no one to buy it. So here at Hennepin County, to accomplish our goals, we have a few programs that I thought would be a fun way to go over what we do. So we have a zero waste challenge to help residents reduce their household waste. We have, and are continuing to pour resources into a wasted food program that works both with businesses to adopt waste prevention activities, but also with households to increase their awareness of food waste as an issue, but also adopt some habits that will reduce wasted food coming out of our homes. We have programs to increase reuse, which is our Choose to Reuse or Join the Circle program. The Choose to Reuse coupon was discontinued a couple of years ago, and we replaced it with a campaign called Join the Circle, which is intended to support reuse retailers and really get people in those stores to close the circle on materials already made and in use. We have our Fixit Clinics to help repair items. And then for recycling, this is where you have the most robust programs and the longest and oldest programs here at Hennepin County. We have curbside recycling and are continuing to increase and promote curbside organics recycling. We have 2 drop-off facilities, and we have agreements with all of the other metro counties. So if you live closer to the Carver County hazardous waste drop-off site, Anoka or Dakota, Ramsey County, we can all use each other's facilities at no cost. So the Zero Waste Challenge is active now. If you go to hennepinzwc.ecochallenge.org, you can sign up and participate in the Zero Waste Challenge. It's a month-long challenge that helps you pick out specific actions that will help reduce or improve recycling at your home. It's a great challenge and program. You can also, it's not too late to have a Rotary team and compete against each other. And we will be continuing these online challenges. We also have a more in-depth in-person challenge where you get paired with a Hennepin County staff person to both track your waste and do a quantifiable improvement. That's kind of why we give you such great attention, is because we use it for tracking and developing outreach materials. So wasted food, some tips on wasted food are to plan and prep, store it and track what's available, love your leftovers, and make it work. So make sure to use what's available in your fridge. And we just wrapped up some stakeholder conversations around wasted food. So we will be pushing out improved and new education materials around this topic. And we will also be pairing it, like I said, with helping businesses. So that may be increasing the availability of things like imperfect foods, sales at grocers, or just simple tracking. So there are lots of great software that help businesses track their wasted food and clean up their prep lines to make sure that waste is being reduced and eliminated. So there's lots of different things we can do and will do to address food waste. So join the circle. This is the link here. Like I said, it was previously the Choose to Reuse program. And what this program is really all about is promoting getting people in the door of those reuse retailers that we have here locally. There are a lot of great online options for reuse, but we also have a lot of local businesses that we can support who are retailers of repair and reuse materials, keeping an item in use longer. And so this is a great way. We also, on the Join the Circle or the Choose to Reuse site, we have a map. It is limited to Hennepin County, but what you can do on that map is decide what you're looking for or what you'd like to do. So if you're looking for repair, if you're looking for a reuse retailer, if you're looking for furniture, this map will help you pick out and find the right resource for your materials. Our Fixit Clinics are monthly. I don't know if any of you have been to a Fixit Clinic or know anyone who volunteers. So this is a program. Volunteers are the basis of this program. And so what we usually would do is have a monthly workshop that rotates between suburban Hennepin County and closer to Minneapolis. And we would have about a dozen Fixit volunteers, and you can bring an item that's in disrepair. And we will resume these in-person clinics when we get the go-ahead by county administration. But as of now, we're doing virtual clinics where we'll pair you with a volunteer and you can fix your item virtually, which is really exciting. We have been able to fix dishwashers, refrigerators, and our basic items like mixers and other kitchen items. So we do a lot of fixing of lamps and other materials, and this helps extend the life of items that would otherwise be trashed. And then quickly I'll go through recycling. So we have our paper, our cartons, other paper from the bathroom and other spaces in our house, glass, metals, plastics, keeping the lids on because those lids get recycled as well if they're on, and they're too small if they're off. And then other plastics, which can be very difficult to know which plastics are recyclable and which aren't. So if you see a 1 or 2, they're good to go. And most 5s are good to go unless they're black plastic. And I'll definitely take questions. So I'll kind of work.
So I had heard from, and it seemed like a myth, but that some plastics, like plastic just can't be recycled. And I'm guessing it's probably just some, but like the numbers are just to distract you. And so you don't feel bad about it. It all just goes to waste. What is up with that story?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on your definition of recycling. So I think a lot of people think of recycling as that material being used over and over and over again. So paper can be recycled into another paper product 7 times. Aluminum and glass can be turned into another aluminum or glass container indefinitely. And so plastic recycling is a little more difficult because of the different colors and the different types of plastic. And so your number 1 bottles and your number 2 milk jugs, those are being recycled. They're not always being recycled back into a milk jug or a plastic bottle. And I think that will change in the future as more and more brands commit to increasing the recycled content in their products. But a lot of times these materials are making something else. They're making clothing. So a lot of, I don't know if you've seen promotions of like fleece sweaters that are from recycled content. So they're making clothing or different household products like cutting boards. So they're going into other materials that then those materials can't be recycled. So you can't recycle a plastic cutting board, for example, but that cutting board might be made from a bottle that you recycled.
But the idea that no plastic is recyclable is absolutely not true. Okay, it's
not true. I think it's just that a lot of plastics aren't being recycled, and they aren't being recycled into that same item. So it's not a closed loop where it's going through.
Got it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Actually, a couple of them. What kind of glass is, or maybe better put, is not recyclable?
Yeah.
And how about plastic bags? I know we can take certain kinds back to the grocery store.
Absolutely.
But bread bags and other kinds of bags, magazine wrappers, what do we do with them?
Great question. And I do have bags at the end of my presentation, so I'll loop back to those. Those shouldn't go in your curbside bins. But for glass, that is a lot more limited. It is food, beverage containers. So if you even have like a mason jar that broke, oftentimes mason jars are heat treated so they can withstand higher heats. So like a mason jar that you're canning with, often those need to go into the trash. And so then any cups or glass, like if a window shatters, that also needs to go in the trash. So glass packaging that food was in, that is recyclable. But most glass outside of food packaging has been like reinforced to be more heat resistant or stronger, and they don't have the same melting point as other food packaging glass. So I'm not sure. Yep.
I have a question. One of the things during COVID that is currently very popular are all the plastic dividers. And we had a conversation early on with the foundation. We gave a grant for the schools to get those plastic dividers within their school systems to protect the students, the administrators, and the teachers. Is there anything that Hennepin County has set up already to recycle those once though we get through past COVID?
We are looking at options for what we call bulky plastics. So at our drop-off facility in Bloomington, we're pretty space limited, but up in Brooklyn Park, we have quite a bit more space to store items. So we are going to be investigating options for additional plastics at the Brooklyn Park transfer station. I think, and that is something, we can do in some capacities, but, often recycling ends up being kind of a private market system. So we often will send you to recyclers who accept plastic and talk through your material and if that can be collected. But I think, there will be a big influx in these plastic dividers and other materials. And we are also looking at opportunities to expand recycling for plastic at the Brooklyn Park Transfer Station beyond what is accepted at curbside.
Okay, that's good to know. The vendor that provided those plastics for us,
Uh-oh, did we lose him?
I think so.
The internets are failing us today.
So I have one quick question, hopefully, is Robbinsdale in Hennepin County?
Robbinsdale is in Hennepin County, yes.
Because I have a friend who lives there and their recycling won't accept any plastics and other materials, where I live in Minneapolis, and of course ours takes a lot, does take plastic and different items. And I found that so interesting that different communities are different, which I suppose is how it works. But
Yeah, that might be a case of misinformation as well, because, you know, the recycling facilities that Robbinsdale is using, I'm not quite, I would have to look back at information about that city, but, you know, we have only 4 recycling sorting facilities that serve us here in the metro, and they are very similar in what they accept.
okay.
So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know that where she found that information, but I would recommend that she continue to recycle plastic bottles, milk jugs, and any number 1 clear plastics that she has. I would tell her not to trust the information that she got on plastic.
Okay. Their trucks are different than the ones that come here, though.
Yes, but
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think that's allowed.
Okay.
We're not allowing recyclers to deny plastic.
Okay.
I'm wondering if by looking at different vendors, if that would be helpful of, you know, who do you have to do your pickup? Is that a reasonable resource? I'm looking at curbside and I don't see a whole lot, but just curious.
I don't remember. So there are some cities, most all cities provide recycling service and contract on behalf of residents for recycling service.
The city.
So it should be the city that arranges that contract.
Got it.
But I can look that up. Also for Golden Valley.
Yeah, that's helpful to know.
Yeah. All right, so I do have a little bit in here about organics. So organics is the newer push. It'll be available to all residential households by January 2022. So as long as you live in a community or a city that has more than 10,000 residents, and you live in a single family home to a 4-plex, you should be offered curbside organics recycling. It is up to the city how the program is designed and organized. And so what organics recycling is the collection of food scraps, soiled paper products like pizza boxes and napkins, and compostable, certified compostable takeout containers. And it's brought to an industrial composting facility where it is then decomposed with yard waste and creates compost, which is a nutrient-rich soil amendment. So this is industrial or large-scale composting, which we have 2 compost sites here in the metro that process all of the yard waste, or not all of the yard waste, but all of the food waste collected by commercial organics programs. And then the other option to compost is using a backyard bin. And then for those cities with fewer than 10,000 residents, those cities are required to coordinate a drop-off for residents to use. And then drop-offs will continue to be the main avenue for getting apartment and condo dwellers service until we can get to an increase our capacity for processing food scraps, but also improving the recycling rate, which has continued to be a challenge for apartments, that they simply need more recycling access. So that's our first priority with those residents. And then quickly, and we can return to questions. So for those hard to recycle materials, appliances, batteries, electronics, furniture, we do have our green disposal guide. This doesn't cover normal recycling like you were talking about. It only covers items that are accepted at our drop-off facilities. And so it's going to cover kind of those hard to get rid of items. So items like household hazardous waste. So a household hazardous waste is any material that is going to catch fire, react, and it's safe for household use, but it shouldn't go into a landfill, because if it goes into a landfill with another hazardous waste and they mix and cause a fire, then that causes pretty serious health and safety concerns at landfills and other trash facilities. And then what we think of as hazardous waste, sometimes they're not incredibly hazardous anymore. Things like paints, which no longer have, are pretty inert by this point. But things like cleaners, household cleaners, those are often caustic. Oils, used oil, batteries, all of those can be brought to a Hennepin County drop-off facility to be safely managed. And the other things that you can bring to our drop-offs are items that can't go into your curbside bin, like scrap metal. So scrap metal can be recycled, and this is a great place to do it. We just ask you to remove as much plastic or non-metal items as possible, and we may reject something that has too much plastic or other materials with it. We really can only take pure metal. And then this is where another place you can bring your plastic wrap and bags. Looping back to Peggy's question. So there are a lot of plastic bags and wraps that can be recycled, both at Target, Cub, your grocers, but also at the Hennepin County drop-off. We all use similar vendors for these materials. So your bread bag, if you get dry cleaning, still your dry cleaning bag, a lot of like toilet paper, paper towel, that clear stretchy wrap can all be recycled. The only thing to note is when you're kind of moving into the kitchen space, it's incredibly important that there are no labels or stickers or residues in the plastic wrap and bags. So that's one of the reasons it's really branded as plastic bags, is because generally those are very clean. And so going above and beyond, you really need to make sure that you're not contaminating that plastic wrap and bag stream. So that's where we recommend, if you're recycling your flexible Amazon packaging, making sure you cut out the whole label and put that in the trash before putting that wrapper, that plastic packaging in your recycling. So plastic, film, and bags are all recyclable at drop-offs, and they are pretty consistent in what's accepted at all of them. And so plasticfilmrecycling.org has a lot more information on different films, how to tell which ones are recyclable and which aren't, because there are some, like a chip bag, which would not be recyclable. It's a different type of plastic.
So don't put them in your regular recycle bin. They go to a special place.
Correct. It's very difficult. There's not the systems yet at recycling sorting facilities to pull these bags out. So they just muck everything up.
Yeah, I think it's helpful for us to know what happens after it goes. There's this vision of like, it all just melts together like earth, and then you just mold it into something new, like.
Yep, so it gets
Really,
sorted, cleaned, sold. A lot happens to it afterwards. So are there any questions? I know I'm at time, so you're more than free to send me questions. I'm happy to answer them or provide more information. Don't hesitate. If not, we have an environment at hennepin.us. If it is a recycling question, it probably will come to my team. So you might as well just go ahead and ask me. But you can also use that environment@hennepin.us email. And then I can send this group, if you all want, information on recycling at the different cities in Hennepin County.
Great. I'm wondering, what is the biggest challenge that you face? What's the biggest issue?
I think for me, it is often, it's very difficult to explain what's recyclable and what's not. And so I think for me in my job, a lot of people have questions about what's recyclable, and we just haven't perfected the message to help that be easily understandable and relatable to residents. And then when it comes to the big push, which is getting more people recycling their food scraps, again, we have this issue with compostable products, which can be very confusing. And there's a lot of misinformation or like poor labeling, which causes people to think something is compostable when it's not. So I think that's our biggest challenge is, this how to recycle logo that you might see on like Target's brand has been putting that on. We need better consumer education. And I think that's our biggest challenge. But when it comes to waste prevention, I think that's a whole new horizon for us. And we're still exploring how to get people to close the loop and adopt prevention habits in the first place, because we've all kind of learned how nice it is. Our current system is really convenient. It just generates quite a bit of waste.
My kids are 14 and 15. They said, "Can a styrofoam recyclable?"
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't you know that? Like, right? Like we recycle all the time, but it's just a reminder of younger generations. Like they don't know everything that we know, and to be intentional. And after seeing different presentations about recycling, I'm so much more aware, but yeah, it changes, and stating the obvious doesn't hurt.
Keelan had a question, and then I have one too.
I'm really happy to know that we're going to have curbside compostable and food waste, because that's something that's been missing. Once we have that, what are the trade-offs in doing that versus putting things down your garbage disposal?
So generally, the garbage disposal is, there's a very anxious feeling at the waste processing facility. They don't want huge amounts of that material. They already have so many industrial effluents that they have to process when it comes to those food scraps and the nutrient-rich items. So they don't really want residents using that as an outlet. The other issue is that there is kind of this question of how clean are those biosolids? Are they bound with pharmaceuticals? Can we just put those on farms? Whereas when you're putting it in the compost site, you have a little more control over what it's mixed with, hopefully and ideally. So you're not having some of those questions about what else is in the leftovers or the compost.
So the bottom line is composting is much better than using
composting is much better.
Okay.
And I think, there are other options when you can source separate it and pull it out. There are other options for how to manage it. For example, anaerobic digestion to create a cleaner natural gas. So you can, generate methane, which I don't know if that's renewable or not, but it's an option.
Yeah, we had a presenter a while back. I remember talking about water and garbage disposals and going, I don't know. They said, I don't know why it's ever invented. Like, it's not a particularly good thing at all to put food waste down in there, which I thought was interesting.
Not designed for that.
Mallory, do you do like tours of the site where things are received? Like, could we use that for a program if we were doing something off-site sometime?
Absolutely, yeah. So most material recovery facilities, Eureka, Waste Management, Republic, and DEMCON are our 4 recovery facilities that process recycling, and they all have great educational resources and do tours. And then I don't think that the Mdewakanton Zoo compost site does tours, but the SCT Empire compost site down in Rosemount, they do tours. So you can see how they mix yard waste with the food scraps to generate compost. So that's another great option. It's not as fun as going to a material recovery facility where you get to see and learn more about how the recyclables are sorted. That's like an hour tour usually.
Okay. And then my other question is, I know that paper towels and napkins and those types of things are not recyclable, which makes me sad because I end up using a lot of them. But why, is it a fiber or something that's in there that it causes them not to be?
It's the issue with being contaminated with food and grease. So you could put napkins and paper towels in your compost. And this is also the debate about pizza boxes. Generally, though, the grease and the food, make that paper fiber no longer recyclable. And so they have to be composted instead because the fiber recyclers, the paper recyclers can't process out grease and food.
If I used it just to wipe water up, could you recycle it?
And I think then when it comes to the material recovery facilities, that they can't take that soft, it would likely not make it into the right place if you were to recycle it.
Mallory, I'd like to follow up on that. If we get a pizza and let's say the top of the pizza box is clean, can we cut it off and recycle that, or they just reject them outright?
Nope, that would be considered just fine. And the truth is, likely if you were to put a pizza box in the recycling, even if it was contaminated with grease, it would probably make it to cardboard, but then it becomes an issue for that paper recycler once it gets there.
Yeah. I had another question too. I don't think you mentioned, maybe it went by me, but bubble wrap. There's so many products now are being packaged with paper on the bottom and a big plastic bubble on top of the product. What do we do with that?
Yeah, anytime, with the exception of milk cartons and other cartons for beverages, and it's trash if it's two materials mixed like that. So if it's bubble wrap and it's just plastic, that can be put in your film recycling. But if it's the mailers where it's paper and bubble wrap fused, those are trash. And I think it's important to rip open those packages now, because I've started to see instead of having plastic, they're using like a paper fiber and confetti instead as the and those are fully recyclable as well. Those are fine to recycle.
So what we can do is just take off the bubble wrap, toss that.
Yes.
Recycle the paper.
Yeah, if you can get them apart. Yeah.
Got to get the product out.
Now, this is interesting. I'm thinking Rotary, we might be able to do some projects to help promote awareness and do some recycling. Mallory, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. And I don't know about you guys, but I've got a whole bunch of Googling I'm going to do and educating to my children as well.
Yeah.
We're
grateful. There's some great videos and resources. So
thank you so much for your time. Bye. And we are going to close, as always, reciting the 4-way test of the things that we think, say, or do as Rotarians. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Enjoy this beautiful weather. We shall all recycle a little bit better now after this, and see you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Mallory.